Listen, the only true girl's girl that I know tells the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. This podcast called The Virgo's Bible is it. Here, listen. Welcome back to another episode of The Virgo's Bible. Today we are going to get into law number 12, protect your mind. Something over on my social platforms. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. Instagram and Facebook at moonstone_energy. And I'm on TikTok at moonstone_0. So today I posted something regarding anti-intellectualism. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But what I wanted to talk about was how it is important to protect your mind and the power of thought. So when you reflect on your high school years, college years, right? In order for you to participate in sports, if you were athletically inclined during those years, you couldn't sign up, you couldn't become a part of these things unless your teacher signed off. And if your teacher doesn't sign off, what does that mean? It means that your grades are slipping. You can't be a part of any athletic sport, any sports, unless your grades are up to par. And I bring this up because when we think about the teachers and the fact that they aren't paid enough, and we think about the athletes that are paid millions upon millions of dollars, they sign billion-dollar contracts every year. And the teachers that signed off on their athletic programs aren't paid not even half. They're paid a year. And I find it fascinating because this is in direct correlation with the movies that we would see back in the day. Like, for example, classic American movies that have the classic American setup. The nerd versus the jocks. The nerds were bullied because they prioritized education over conforming to social norms and being a jock, masculine presenting, and all this other BS. And in the real world, when we get down to the nitty gritty, in the real world, and I'm not saying this is in all cases because it's not true, but in most cases, the jocks end up working for the nerds. Why do you think that is? Why aren't the jocks the ones that are employing the nerds? I'll tell you why. Because the nerds prioritized thinking, learning above social status and social acceptance. And we still see that to this day. Overseas, let's take Japan, for example. They take their education so seriously. And I remember I was watching it's like a vlog type of video, but this guy, I can't remember the channel, but he follows around people just to do like day in the lives of a certain person in Japan, just to show you behind the scenes of what it is to be them, right, for a day. And there was this one time where he was shadowing someone and they were talking about education and how it's seen as something that's really important over there. And people that didn't were seen as, stupid. Like, they, not saying that they necessarily were stupid, so to speak, but they made fun of them because they were not smart as them. Now, it's more layers to that anyway. but I'm not going to get into that. But what I'm saying all of this to say, the world that we are in today is out for your mind. And not only are they out for your mind, but your creativity as well. So in the post that I did on my social media, I said, I'm starting to think that all of the zombie movies were a reference point for anti-intellectualism, leading to the blind following that we see today. It may be a reach, but think about it. The infection starts with contact, then it goes to the brain. Lastly, they disperse and infect the others. Where the mind goes, the body follows. And this is true. If you want to contaminate someone's mind, you will do so by programming them, showing them propaganda. Because when people start to see different things on a consistent basis, and this is psychology, like literal psychology, and you can see this. When you see something repetitively over and over again, it makes you, of course, you subconsciously think about it when you're not really consciously thinking about it. But that is how propaganda happens. So people that consume various forms of content on social media, people that doom scroll constantly. And I'm not saying I've never did any of these things, because we're all guilty of it at some point, but you have to be aware. You have to gain a certain level of awareness when you are out here in these social media streets, if that makes sense. You have to be aware of yourself and aware of the type of things that you're listening to. I've always been an advocate for curating your timeline to see what you want to see. And now they've made it so, and I'm not talking about the powers that be, quote unquote, the powers that be. I'm talking about Instagram, Facebook, Meta. What they're doing is of course, they give you the option to see different things. You have a click, at the click of a button, you can change between both feeds, right? However, initially when Facebook came around and initially when Instagram came around, you only saw on your timeline who you followed. That's it. That's all you saw. And then you may see someone else that follows someone or reposted something, and then you will see that, and then if you're interested, you'll follow them. That's how it works, right? But now what they're doing is they are monitoring your habits across different platforms, even what you watch on television, because especially if you have a smart TV. I've noticed it with my Samsung TV. When you watch something on your phone and then you turn around and you're watching TV, you will see the same ad on the television that you would see on your phone. And no, this isn't a conspiracy theory. No, it's called ad tracking. They are tracking your activity. This is why it's important to turn that shit off. They will flood you, literally flood you with commercials, flood you with ads. This is why a lot of people initially they went to streaming and watching movies and TV shows on places like Netflix and, etc. And that's when greed came into play. They wanted to infiltrate any area that has your attention. Why do you think that they believe that your attention is so important? Because, like I said, where the mind goes, the body follows. If they show you 1,000,000,001 ads about a fucking hamburger or a fucking outfit or blah, blah, it's going to trigger a reaction within you. Either it's going to make you angry, depending on what the ad is about, or it's going to trigger you to spend money. That is why ads are what they are. And it gets to a point where people have been seeking other means to view their favorite movie, their favorite television show without said ads. And the thing is, they figure if I overload you with so many ads and so much content, I'm gonna force you to subscribe to an ad-free option by getting more money out of you. If you don't want to work with our partners to get, money, because of course, every view of an ad results in money for them. That's why it's important for them to keep you on those apps for as long as possible, because they can get paid off of your views, right? Imagine if everyone collectively today said, I'm not going to watch another video on TikTok or video on Facebook or wherever. They would go broke. And I think that people don't understand their power as a consumer. You have more power in your little pinky than they want you to believe. And I understand ads are important, especially for smaller businesses, right? However, to them, you are a small fry. They don't care about you. And this is why it's so important as a business owner to migrate your target audience to your private communities. So it's not flooded, they're not being bombarded with senseless information. Like it's actual connection, it's actual value being given. There's an actual trade, an actual exchange, right? And that's the problem. And all of it has to do with greed. All of it has to do with money. Money is the root cause. I don't know if any of you saw when the whole thing with Hulu and Jimmy Kimmel. I never watched Jimmy Kimmel. It's not that's not my type of show, but I know who he is though. So when his show was taken away, people began protesting Hulu, right? And it worked. So the only way that you can get through to companies that don't care is to hit them in their pockets, because that's all that matters to them. If their pockets are depleting, they're gonna shut up and listen. But let me just tell you this: after that whole thing with Jimmy Kimmel, because I have Hulu, and I will not have Hulu after a while. I'm gonna cancel before my billing period comes around, because no. At first, I had Hulu because I love Salem. Salem is my show. They're getting rid of Salem, and that's trash. I have another show that I usually watch on there. I can't think of what it is. Hulu, they have some exclusive things, which is pretty cool, but it's not, to me personally, it's not worth it. American Horror Story. I like American Horror Story as well, but child, I know how to watch my shows if I need to. But at any rate, Hulu for me is not necessary. Like, I don't see it as something that I need to have as a monthly bill, right? So as I was watching a show, shortly after I signed into my account on my television, I saw a notification, and I attached it to one of my posts on on my social media. Tell me why. They said after a certain amount of time, the pricing is going to go up. So let me tell you something. When streaming was an idea, when it first came around. I had Netflix when it first came out, when they were still pushing DVDs and streaming, right? Boy, when I tell you, Netflix had a whole facelift. Netflix used to be DVDs, and I remember the first movie I watched on Netflix, I think it was Law Abiding Citizen with Jamie Foxx. All of the movies, they had a limited catalog at that time, were in a list. like a scrollable list. You can scroll up and you see a little tiny icon of what the cover of the movie or show looked like. And that's how you would watch it. And it was, I think it was like $7.99 a month or something like that. It was really cheap. Netflix, as soon as they became publicly traded, it got ridiculous. People got greedy, investors, shareholders, it just went down the damn drain. They're overcharging for bullshit. Because this is the thing. I'm pro if it's not broken, don't break it. You know, if it doesn't need to be fixed, don't break it. They broke it. Like broke it. Now the most expensive plan on Netflix is like $15. But and mind you, coming from what, $6.99, $7.99 a month, it's ridiculous. They're greedy. It's all shareholders. Child, Arizona, cans of Arizona have been 99 cents since I was a kid. Why do you think that is? Now, it's one thing if you have to have products, ingredients in order to create a product, and the pricing goes up on you. And it's like, okay, well, I have to figure out a way to make the pricing make sense and still be able to make a profit. So I understand that. But if Arizona can figure the fuck out, what is your excuse? Right? This is, and then once the powers that be understood that everybody was leaving cable, right, and going to streaming, and like me personally, I grew up around cable, but I personally didn't have cable growing up. So my aunt, I would be at my aunt's house every other weekend or whatever, but I would be at her house watching Nickelodeon. I was a PBS kid, baby. I was on Arthur, okay, public television. So once I was able to see cable in its glory, it was like, oh, cable is pretty cool. But then when I moved out, like as an adult, I moved out. I said, you know what? If all I literally need is the internet, I don't need cable. Like cable is a waste of money. And here these greedy bitches go, infiltrating and fucking up shit that wasn't broke. Oh, you only need internet. Okay, well, we finna have this package, this internet package. Oh, now we're gonna have this streaming platform. But if you want to see these exclusive, you gotta pay. Like, it's just all bullshit. It's a crock of shit, right? And that leads me into my next slide. I said, those that have eyes to see can connect the dots. If you've ever read The 48 Laws of Power, The Art of War, or The Art of Seduction, then you understand why I use the zombie reference. It starts with seduction and turns it on its head. Remember, one book a day keeps the stupid away. Contrary to what others say, stay woke. I say this because people don't really understand how seduction works, right? If you're not somebody that is a thinker, somebody that has honed the skill of thinking, expanded your vocabulary, read a dictionary as an act of punishment you wouldn't understand what the fuck is going on. People are being seduced left and right. And people think, oh, seduction has to do with, appealing to your sexual desires. That's an aspect of it, and it's very remedial. Yes, you can. I've seduced several people in my life, but let me tell you something. All of the seduction that I have ever done has to do with the mind. Where the mind goes, the body follows. Okay? If you know, baby, if you know how to talk, if you got a mouthpiece on you, you can get something done. Okay? The politicians, mouthpiece, they speak to your deepest desires, and sometimes your deepest and darkest desires, from what we are seeing right now. They know how to, blow that little dog whistle. They know how to say things that trigger you, right? They know how to push a button, get you to get active, right? And people don't understand that. That's why I always advocate for a fucking book. Read, bitch. Read, goddammit. I hate it. I hate it. And I was watching a video on TikTok and I was so disgusted. This teacher made her entire class do like a little 4-page packet on the guy that got pew-pewed. And I would have went up, if that was my child, I would have went up to that school and told that principal, I am taking my child out of this school. You are not about to sit here and propagate and push propaganda to my child. Where's the real education? Does my child know how to read? Does my child understand context clues? Does my child understand the definition of things? Does my child understand long division? Like, what are you teaching them? You're not teaching them anything worth anything, because the world that we actually live in, they'll tell you that you need to learn how to do, this and that and this and that. But when you get into the real world, they're not teaching. This is why there's always been a discrepancy in the educational system as far as public schools versus private schools. I've been to both. I've been to private schools, and I've been to public schools. I noticed as I got older, I noticed some things with that. As far as the curriculum and the type of environment that it was very different than what I was used to. And education is important. People don't really understand how important it is for your child to actually learn something. When they get out into the real world, they're going to need to know not just to be book smart, but to have social intelligence as well. A lot of the things that your day-to-day interactions with your peers has more to do with, I would say, about 60% social intelligence, and the other half is actual intellectualism. People aren't like you. I mean, life is the best teacher, obviously. Like, you have to live and be social in order to get social intelligence. But there are some things that you can teach. There are some things that you can teach. But all of all the other things, you have to actually be in the world to actually learn. You have to participate basically in life. And the issue that is society, it would rather groom children to become quote unquote patriots than to actually educate them so that they can really be a productive member of society. What I find fascinating is that people that are prejudiced, they would rather choose being prejudiced over actually getting ahead in life, if it means that the other group is being discriminated against, which is the dumbest shit I have ever seen in my life. This is how you know education is a weak spot for them. There is nothing in this world that is going to benefit them by being a bigot, right? You will not get over. You will not have more opportunities. You will not have more food on your table. Your children won't have access to the best of anything with the decisions that you make based on bigotry. And that's when you pay for it, right? You pay for it with your livelihood, with your health, right? Health problems are real. Mental health is a real thing. This is why we have people out here doing senseless things, because they need help. Literally, they need help. And just going back to my post, I made like a little meme. I don't know if y'all ever watched Euphoria. I think this came from Euphoria, but it was Zendaya is in the bed looking at her phone. She's screaming. I said, anytime I hear about a balloon pop, the phrase resting in my femininity, gender wars, left versus right, or celebrity drama, it's a zombie apocalypse. Because it is. If we want to talk about the history of the zombie, it originates in Haiti. They took something that was a part of the Haitian lore and traditions and turned it into something that is demonized, right? And then it turned into pop culture movies and etc. Blase, blase, blase. A zombie is mindless. The only thing that they have at the forefront of anything that they do is consumption. That's it. Consumption, consumption, consumption. We are living in the midst of a zombie apocalypse, and people don't seem to understand that. Some people probably thought the zombie apocalypse was going to be something that had to do with the T virus, like on Resident Evil. Nemesis is gonna spawn out of nowhere. Some mad evil scientist is gonna create Nemesis. I don't think it's going to be that fanatical, but I do believe that it's very symbolic. And I also said in my post, being an adult is realizing that majority of what we see is regurgitated information that never lands. It only results in continuous bickering and blind anger that leads to unnecessary acts of violence. Everything that you're seeing right now, all the drama that has to do with celebrity mess, all the mess with the gender wars, the incel culture, all this bullshit. The root of all of this, and one thing I love is root cause analysis. I always say, ask why. When you start to ask why, that's when things start to become more apparent. That's when things start to make sense and you start to peel back the layers and find the actual truth of things. And the issue that we have is that we don't like the truth. The truth, they say it will set you free, but for some, it pisses them off to the point of violence. They don't want the truth. They want lies. They want illusion. And this is true. This is like studies. Like, these facts, okay? People don't want the truth. But when you start to peel back the layers, you start to see that a lot of the problems that we are seeing today has a lot to do with the lack of knowledge and the lack of wisdom and the lack of understanding. People would rather argue with someone else than to listen to what they're saying and actually hear them. People listen to respond, not to listen to hear, right? Like to actually understand what they're saying and why they're saying it. That's the problem that we have. And a lot of it has to do with education. Education is very important, not just to function and know how to get, like go to a supermarket and know how to count some change and make sure someone's not trying to stiff you and steal your money in front of your face. It has more to do. That's only like an aspect of it. It's only an aspect of it. Life is long. And it's important to understand that You need to equip yourself with armor, and that armor is education. That armor is intelligence, social intelligence, knowing when to go all in and when to withdraw, knowing that all battles don't need to be fought and won. Sometimes you have to choose self-preservation over getting the last word. Sometimes being quiet and observing is going to help you to survive. Every argument doesn't need to be won with people. Some people think that's how it is. No, trust. If you believe in universal laws and principles, cause and effect is always going to be cause and effect. No matter the generation, the era, none of it. None of that matters. It's always going to be apparent. What goes up must come down, right? You can't duck that shit. No matter how much you may want to. People think that the piper never gets paid. Of course the piper gets paid. The piper's always paid. Always. Right? The only thing that is guaranteed in this life is death. And that's not to be grim. That's just the fact. Everything goes through a cycle of death. We are entering into a cycle of death right now. We're in the season of fall. The leaves are starting to turn. And eventually they're going to fall off the tree. And the tree branches are going to be bare. That's death. The rebirth comes around in the spring. Everything flows in cycles. Everything. So, regardless of anything that is going on in this world, heed my warning. Protect your mind. Protect your essence. And another thing, protect your creativity. You have to be a thinker in order to be creative. Contrary to what others may believe, the best lyricists out there, if we're talking about rappers, singers even, you have to be a thinker. You have to know how to read. You have to know how to write. You have to know about poetry, similes, words that rhyme. You have to read a thesaurus. Okay. You have to be smart in order to be a singer, a writer, a really good one though. I'm not talking about a Dr. Seuss. I mean, Dr. Seuss be popping off now, but you get what I'm saying. You have to be able to read in order to be a good creative. You have to be able to, a good artist. In order to be a creative, you have to be creative. You have to be able to think outside of the box. All of these things require your brain. Your brain is a muscle that needs to be used. And many people don't use their brains beyond bullshit. And this is why we are in the spaces that we're in. And this is why a lot of creative people are being suppressed, because they are fucking brilliant. A little bit off topic, but have y'all seen heard Doja Cat's album V? For me personally, I like a couple. Like before this, I liked a couple songs by Doja Cat. Doja Cat, she's cool. But when I tell you, I have a favorite album, a new favorite album, and that is Doja Cat's V album. People aren't talking about etc. with her album. I don't give a damn about none of that shit. That album is fucking brilliant. The artistry behind it, the creativity, the thought behind it. You can tell there was thought and intention put behind that work. If you've seen the videos for the songs that she made, the entire album, and I'm sorry this is a spoiler if you haven't heard it, but it is dedicated essentially to the 80s. I love the 80s. I love the 90s too, but the 80s got a special place in my heart. I love 80s movies, 80s vibe. I love it. I love it all. My favorite 80s movie And I'm a hardcore Eddie Murphy fan. But Trading Places is my favorite, one of my favorites. Beverly Hills Police. I got the entire DVD. Quit playing with me. I got them all. And I was super excited when it came to Netflix. I almost blew a gasket. But yeah, I love the 80s. And a lot of the music videos that came with the songs, it was basically spoofing classic 80s movies, music videos. Like, I love it. I absolutely loved it. The songs were amazing. Everything, front to back. That's another favorite album of mine is Confessions by Usher. Confessions was a good ass album. It came out 2004. I think I was in high school. Yeah, I was in high school when that came out. Favorite. No, I wasn't in high school yet. I think I was just about to get into high school. Or either it was my freshman year, one of them. But at any rate, I enjoyed it. It was amazing. I have a couple other favorites, but we're not about to go down that. The whole purpose of this podcast episode is to talk about your brain and using that motherfucker. Thinking, bitch. Think. Stupid people are running this world. Raggedy, okay? The ancestors are coming back from their graves to take back what was stolen. I'm trying to tell y'all. Shit. Like, it's getting hectic out here. It's getting real rambunctious out here in these streets. People don't really see how important it is to actually pick up a book. If I tell you once, I'm going to tell you twice. It's more apparent now than ever. I am smart because my mother took my education seriously. Education was always always at the forefront of my mind. Always. And it will forever be. Reading is fundamental. They say it for a reason, because it is. You can't do anything in this life without having a single thought behind those fucking eyes. And what I'm seeing today is we prioritize beauty over intellect when those two are synonymous. How can beauty and intellect be synonymous? You ask. I'll tell you. Your mind is a beautiful thing to waste. Your mind is beautiful. When you are beautiful internally, it radiates outwardly, even if you are not conventionally, socially considered beautiful. And there's a lot of models that weren't considered beautiful by societal standards. But guess what they did? They flipped that bitch. So I don't give a damn about no social standards. Disrupt that shit. Okay? Okay. At any rate, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please like, share, interact. Connect with me at theesotericsocialites.com. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you for tuning into this episode. Make sure that you check out the listen notes of this podcast for highlights, the crystal ball link, book recommendations, and more. Also, make sure that you're subscribed to the VIP newsletter to receive all things a part of the Virgo's Bible Multiverse. See you in the next one. Bye, girl.